Well, dear friends, yesterday we were talking about the needs of human beings during infancy. And we said that the fundamental needs that human beings have during infancy are physiological, psychological, and spiritual in nature. And we described different aspects of those. And we described the spiritual nature of human being to some extent. And now today we want to talk a little bit more about the spiritual nature and discuss about the needs of children between age 3, 2, 3, all the way to 10 or so, okay? This is a very long period of time. And during this period of time, many important issues happen. Not only the body is growing very fast during that age, also the powers of human soul are growing very fast. Human soul has 3 powers. Everybody has 3 powers. I call these the powers of human soul, or I call it the unique human capacities, unique human powers. And those are, first, the capacity to know. Everybody has a capacity to know. Not only that, everybody wants to know. It is a part of human nature that we want to know. So when you have a 2, 3-year-old child that is now walking around and talking, what the child does, the child constantly goes and opens this door and opens that window and opens here and look under that table and jumps over that table. What the child is doing, the child is discovering the world, because he wants to know, or she wants to know, how the world is. She wants to know what is behind that door. She wants to know where that noise is coming from. She wants to know how to get up this table. He wants to know how to go inside, under the bed, and to see what's happening there. You see, these are the capacities that are a part of human nature that we want to know, to discover. Okay? And this capacity that we want to know, and we have to know, has to be systematically trained by the parents and by the teacher. Because if the parents don't help the child to discover the world, then the child discovers the world through other ways. And many times the other ways are wrong. And therefore, for example, having your children watching certain kind of a television program or not watching is very, very important. It's not just simply what is that they watch, whether it's somebody going around with a gun or not, or somebody is fighting, or they are showing a very marvelous but rather difficult drama. The child wouldn't understand these things. And you have to if the child is watching something, if the child sees something, if the child hears something, you have to help the child to understand. You have to help the child to understand what is the nature of life and what is the purpose of life. You see, this capacity to know is absolutely essential for the growth of the child. And it is more than learning ABC and the alphabet and grammar and language and mathematics and a little bit of history. It's more than that. You have to help the children to understand what is life all about. As early as age 3 or 4, children, for example, become aware of death. They become aware of the fact that there is a phenomenon called death. Okay? Meaning, some people die. Some people die. Some people go away. The little pet that they have, the little pet dies. A goldfish that they have, the goldfish, one morning you come and the belly is up and the goldfish is dead. And this little child has to understand what does it mean to die. Now, most people don't talk with their children about death. They say he's too young, he shouldn't know, he shouldn't understand, he shouldn't hear these things. So what they do most of the time, they ignore the fact that this child wants to know what is death all about, what is separation all about, what is losing somebody all about. So the parents have to take advantage of these events in life and help the children to make a sense of their life, to understand that their life is an ongoing journey, that they are going to go through many phases in their life. And in each phase, they have to prepare for the next phase. You see, that's so essential to do that. I have described that on how to talk about death with children in some of my books. At least in 2 of my books, I have described it. I have described it in Psychology of Spirituality at length, of how to talk with children about death. And also in my Violence-Free Family book, Violence-Free Society book, I have described it. But this is very essential. In the modern society, people don't talk about death with children. And children grow up not knowing how to deal with this issue. And it's a very major matter. So it is not enough to know about mathematics and these kind of things. You have to know about some fundamental aspects of life. Another thing that children should know as they grow up, they are 7, 8, 9 years old, they have to know that their sensations in their body is changing. Because around age 5 or so, children become aware of the differences between sexes in a very clear way. Before that, they are aware. They are aware that the girls and the boys are different. But they still don't understand the significance of it. But around 5, 6, 7, 8, they begin actually to have certain sensations in their bodies and certain elements of sexual awareness. And it is important that the children, you be able to talk with the children about this as a matter of fact. You know, there is for example, if the sister and brother are being bathed, they are 4 years old, 5 years old, in the washroom and so forth, and in the bathtub, it is a good idea to say, you know, our bodies are different. The bodies of men and women are different. And you begin then to teach some of these issues. So that when the child reaches age 11, 12, and the sexuality comes with full force, the child is not surprised. You see, it has had that input, has had that help to understand these things, you see. And so it means that the parents, adults, should begin to feel comfortable about their own bodies, their own sexuality, their own attitudes toward these issues. Teachers should become comfortable. These are not taboo. It's not a taboo to say that the anatomy of the body of a man and a woman or a boy and a girl are different. It is a fact. What is such a taboo about it? Okay? Then they have to learn what is the purpose of these differences in anatomy. What is the secret of life? How life comes into being? You know? You cannot just talk about bees to children and hope that they will learn about sexuality. So you have to you give them knowledge. Give them knowledge before knowledge is attached with emotions of sexuality. Because when it is attached to emotions of sexuality, in other words, when they are teenagers, they are 12, 13, 14, it becomes much more loaded, much more difficult. Give the knowledge beforehand and give it a matter of fact. Give it systematically. Give it informatively. Give it in conjunction of the mother and father together, so that the child just simply takes this as a matter of routine. You say, to the child, this is the way that the television is built. This is the way that the human body is built. This is the way that the body of girls are built. That this is the body of boys are built. There is a purpose in it. There is a process in it. You just make that learning easy. Okay? However, the most important thing, and absolutely the most important thing, that children have to learn is in respect to the laws of creation. Laws of creation. Law of creation. There are two expressions of creation. You remember we talked about it yesterday? We said there are two expressions of creation. One is the physical, and the other one is the spiritual aspects of creation. Okay? Now, both the physical level of creation and the spiritual level of creation, they have laws. Okay? Now, we have to teach children to learn to be aware and respectful of both the physical laws and the spiritual laws. For example, when you want to teach your child to go up and down stairs, you are very careful. You say, we have to hold on to something when we go down because we fall down. There is a law of gravity that takes us down. Or when you go at the edge of place that is down, like a second-story building or seventh-story building or 20th-story building, you say, be careful because if you go by the very close, you may fall down, right? And if you fall down, then you get hurt or you die. Now, it is very important that when you tell the child that, you tell them the reason is that there is a law of gravity. A God has put a law in creation that things that are heavy, when they come at some height, and if you let them go, they go down. This is a law. So we have to be very respectful of this law. Or you say to the child, do not play with matches. You know what matches? Because don't be careful with fire. Why? Because fire burns. And then you say, you take the child's hands very close to fire and say, oh, okay. The child takes his hands back or her hand back and say, you see, it hurts. And sometimes the child by mistake puts the finger on something and burns himself or herself. And you say, you see, fire burns. So we have to be very careful with fire. We don't put our fingers in the electrical socket because it kills. Okay? So what you do, you teach children to respect the laws of nature. Or another, put it in a different way, you help the children to have fear of breaking the laws of nature. You should be very afraid of breaking the law of gravity. Or you should be very afraid of breaking the laws related to touch with fire or contact with electricity. You should be afraid of that. Okay? Now, spiritual laws also are there. And one of the fundamental spiritual laws, which is related to knowledge, is the law of truthfulness and trustworthiness. Truthfulness and trustworthiness. These are absolutely crucial spiritual laws. The spiritual law says that if you want your life to be happy, and if you want your life to be calm, and if you don't want to be constantly anxious, then you have to learn to be truthful, not to lie. And you have to learn to be trustworthy, so that when you say, I do something, you do it. So people say, I trust this person, because every time that this person made a promise, he fulfilled that promise. Now imagine in this room, if we didn't trust each other, so we would be very uncomfortable with each other. Because what does he want from me? Does she want what from me? I better be careful. I better put my hand here so that protect my wallet. What about, all these kind of things, because you don't trust each other, you see? But because we trust each other, we are comfortable. We just go around, we are comfortable, Or we are comfortable with each other because we know that we are not going to lie to each other. But if she thought that I'm going to not to tell her the truth, then she couldn't trust me. You see? So one of the main problems in the world of humanity today is that people do not trust each other. People lie to each other. Husbands and wives lie to each other. Parents and children lie to each other. Teachers and students lie to each other. Governments and people lie to each other. Business people lie to each other. People constantly lie. So consequently, the relationships in the world have become very, very difficult. Now, an essential aspect of need of education of children between age 2, 3 until 10, 11 is to help them to learn to be truthful and trustworthy. It is absolutely essential that they learn to be truthful and trustworthy, which is related to issue of capacity to know. Let's talk a little bit about more. You see, because we want to know something, when you have a child, then you have to help the child to investigate the truth. Okay? That's what you want to do. So somebody comes to you and says, did you know that people from Japan eat raw fish? And suppose you are from Persia and you never eat raw fish, okay? And you say, oh no, my God, what is that? No, I said. And they say it is very delicious. Not only they eat raw fish, but it is delicious. So the child who never has eaten raw fish and couldn't imagine that the raw fish is delicious, so you take the child to a friend who is Japanese and say, would you please make some food for us, Japanese food, right? Make us some sushi. Sushi is raw fish? Yes.
Sushi has raw fish on it.
Sushi has raw fish on it, yes. And also has other things and so forth. And it's delicious, isn't it?
Very delicious.
Very delicious. It's my favorite food, okay? It's my favorite.
My second favorite.
What is the first one?
Wow, spiritual food.
Yeah, she chickened out. All right, okay, we forgive you. All right.
Thank you.
Sushi, okay, is one of most delicious foods. The only way that the child would learn that yes, there could be a food that is not hamburger and also is delicious. Like an American child. Or is not a pulao and is also delicious, like a Persian. Or is not like a creamy sauce, like Europeans, and it's also delicious. The only way that the child will learn that is to help them to investigate the truth themselves. We say, let's go, let's taste it, let's do it twice, let's do it 3 times. And you gradually begin to develop the taste. And you say, oh my God, this is really nice. Okay? So a search for truth must be in every area of life. And one of the things that we have to do to develop the capacity to know in our children is to help them to investigate the truth for themselves. If you do that, then your children wouldn't be prejudiced. Because at the source of prejudice is when the children don't learn about different cultures. This is very important in respect to intermarriage, interracial marriages. Because one of the most exciting things about interracial marriages, if the husband and wife could do it, is to discover the unique aspects of each other's culture rather than trying to change one in the image of the other. Usually, either the husband or wife says, okay, let's change the other person and make the other person to do the way we do it, you see? So one culture becomes dominant and the other culture becomes secondary. While it is really exciting if you could discover that you have both cultures together at an equal basis, the best of the both, you see? When you do that, then you not only bring diversity to the relationship, which is very exciting. But also, you allow the children to investigate the truth and to be able to see beauty in everywhere, not only in what is familiar to them. So you make the child then to become more universal. Because knowledge should be universal. Most people, most cultures, what they teach the children and the young people is to make their knowledge limited. They say, you are Chinese and you should know about China and people of China. And you are Persian and you should know about that. And you are Norwegian and you should know about Norway. And you are Americans and you should know about America and whatever, okay? While really what we have to help is to help the child during these years to develop universal knowledge. Also in respect to truthfulness and freedom from prejudice, which is search for truth, and freedom from prejudice. We also have to, freedom from prejudice, we also have to help the children to understand their emotions. Okay? Their emotions. Children should know that when they are in a dangerous condition, when they feel something is threatening them, they are in danger, that they automatically have three feelings. They become afraid, they become angry, and they become anxious. They should know. These are the kind of things that we go later about it. But what I want to emphasize here is that it is essential that during the second phase that we are talking, the childhood phase, that children be taught in respect to not only their capacity to know, but their capacity to use their knowledge in an ethical, moral manner. In other words, to make their knowledge spiritual. When you make your knowledge spiritual, then you become truthful. Then you become trustworthy. Then you always search for truth. And then you will not allow yourself to be prejudiced. Okay? This is so essential that we do that. Now, the second capacity, prejudice, is a freedom from prejudice. Now the second thing, the second power of human soul and human reality, the second power of human reality is the capacity to love. Okay? To love. The capacity to love. Now, capacity to love is very important issue because most people don't know how to love in a healthy manner. They don't know. Most people don't know how to love. Some people think that when you love somebody means that you give that person anything that person that wants. So the child says, "Mommy, do you love me?" And say, "Of course I love you." And say, "Give me some candy." And the mommy says, no, I don't give you candy. Say, you don't love me. You see? Because the child connects receiving with love. Thank you very much. I love it. Yes. This is candy from, is 1,000-year candy?
Yes.
All right. From China. Yes.
Always prepared.
Always, yes. Marvelous. On the other hand, there are some parents, like Richard, who think loving means to give. So they give to the child. Give this gift and that gift, and when at the birthday they make an enormous fuss over the child, and during holidays they do all kind of things, and they give too much. Love in its complete and mature form is the capacity both to give and to receive in a very moderate manner. It could not be extreme, okay? But more importantly, if you want to know whether you are loving somebody in a healthy way, you have to see whether the person that you are loving is growing or not. If the person is not growing, your love is not right. For example, if I have a plant here, right? It's a beautiful rose bush. And so, oh my God, I love this rose bush so much. It's such a magnificent rose bush. Let me put as much water I can do it so it can grow faster. And it is growing, it's very nice. So I said, it's so beautiful, I don't want anything to harm it, so let me put a big glass dome over it so that no cold can get to it and no heat can get to it and so forth. So I water it and put it under the glass, and after 2 days it dies. Okay? Because in my eagerness to love the rose bush, I have done too much. I haven't considered the needs of the rose bush to grow. Growing up is painful. It's painful. In other words, children should be accustomed to difficulties. Accustomed to difficulty means that the children should be used to difficulties. In other words, it's okay for children to have some task that they have to obey and to follow. For example, Bayan is sitting here. He is bored. I don't blame him, okay? He's bored. Here, a lot of adults are sitting here, and Bayan, who is 9 years old, 9 years old, sitting here, listening to this man talking on and on about these things, okay? So Bayan is bored. Now, Bayan can do a number of things. But what he is doing very politely, calmly, quietly, sitting there. This is not the nicest thing to do for him, but it is good for him because he develops the capacity of self-control. You see? So growing up is painful, but it's not bad pain. You know? It is like the pain of exercise. You know, today, if we had a class for 8 hours and you were sitting here, at the end of the 8 hours, you would have pain and ache all over your body, okay? Because you didn't have exercise. On the other hand, if you go and exercise, you also have a pain. But the two pains are very different. One is a pain which says it's not good for you, you need exercise. The other one, the pain, is that your muscles are growing and getting healthier. It's good for you. Now, the same thing is about children when they grow up. You have to make sure that you do not neglect the growth of your children, especially their moral, ethical, spiritual growth. Okay? So if you get very upset with your child if the child lies, it's good because the child shouldn't lie and should learn not to lie. And it is painful. But nevertheless, you have to be very clear about that. See? So this dynamic, so one of the ways that you know that the love that you have is healthy is to see whether your love results in growth. If the love that you are giving to the child results in the child maturing intellectually, emotionally, morally, ethically, then you are doing the right thing. You are giving the right love to the child. Okay? Also, if you love a child, you will see that you help the child to grow in a unique way, because each child is different. You cannot say, you grow up to be like me. No. You have to say, you grow up to become the person that uniquely you can become. So in other words, the parents have to help they have to encourage unique characteristics of their children. Every child has some unique characteristics, and you have to encourage them. You know what's encouragement? Encouragement means that you find something positive about a person which exists, which is there, and then you focus on that positive quality. And you help that child to also focus on the positive quality. By doing that, you give the child courage to develop that positive quality. Because encouragement means to give someone courage. That's what encouragement means. You see? And there are two ways that people can encourage. I can say to somebody to encourage a child, throw a stone at that window. Come on, do it. You can do it. Well, the child would do it and would break the window. But that is encouraging the child to do the wrong thing. You also want to encourage you want to always encourage the child to do the right thing. So you give the child the courage to do the right thing. And in this respect, the worst thing that is enemy of love in relationship between parents and children, between teachers and students, is criticism. Criticism is an enemy of love. Criticism decreases the capacity of love. Criticism means that you focus on negative qualities of the child. And the more you focus on negative qualities, the bigger those negative qualities they become. So it's very important that you focus on positive qualities. So one sign of growth, one sign of good love is growth. The other one is creativity, meaning growing in a unique way. And for both of them, you need encouragement. You encourage the child, and you do not get involved in severe criticism of children. Okay? Now, the third result of love when it is healthy is that when somebody loves in a healthy way, then the result of it, one of the outcome of it is unity. Unity. In other words, if somebody is really loving with somebody else, then they would be united with each other. They would be harmonious with each other. They would agree with each other. They are different from each other, but they are united in their differences. This is very important. Unity doesn't mean sameness. Unity always requires diversity. You see, if you and I want to be united, and you say, well, I will be united with you if you become Japanese. Well, I cannot become Japanese. Or if I say, I will be united with you if you weren't Japanese. That was not possible. Unity means that you and I would be harmonious with each other and love each other and relate to each other. I respect your uniqueness and you respect my uniqueness. I accept your diversity, you accept my diversity. This is the way that happens, you see. Otherwise, love doesn't exist. The true love should create unity. Okay, that's what true love does. And unity is only really powerful when there is diversity. If there is no diversity, unity is not functioning well. See? So very fact that we are in this room so diverse right now, you see, that means that our unity is much greater. The same thing is in the family. And that's the reason that the challenge of multicultural, multiracial and so forth families is they have greater challenge. But then the unity that is established in the end is much more profound, much more substantive. And you see, the challenge, you shouldn't be afraid of challenge. Because challenge is necessary for your own spiritual growth. It is very easy to get married with somebody that is exactly like you, thinks like you, feels like you, eats like you. Both of you have money, both of you have the same idea of what is fun, and so forth. You go through life not knowing what happened to life. You don't discover anything about yourself. The cows in Switzerland are very happy. Okay? They are. They just go around. They don't have any worries. They don't have any diversity. They don't have any difficulty to focus on. Okay?
But in England it's different.
Yes, in England I know that. We don't mention that, you see? So this is very important. We don't want to live our lives like cows. Okay? We want to live our lives like human beings, which means we have to be conscious. And the more we become conscious of our diversity, the better it is. Because you see, when you are married with somebody that is different from you, or when you adopt a child that is from another culture, when you do that, that person immediately becomes a mirror for you. You begin to see new things that you didn't see about yourself before, because it's a new mirror. And this new mirror shows different angles of you. Okay? So it's very important that we don't be afraid, that we are not afraid of diversity. Yes, diversity is difficult. But then it brings in out of us the capacities to love that we hadn't known it before. It just encourages those capacities to emerge. You see? So it's very good. So when we want to love, to teach our children to love and develop their capacity to love, we have helped them to grow and help themselves to grow. We have to help them to develop their own unique capacities and not to be afraid to be different, to be unique, to stand out. Because most people want to be the same. Most parents say, okay, let's get the same blue jean as everybody else has. No. Let your children be different. Every Baha'i child is different anyway. Every child of minority, when he goes to another society, is different anyway. So you have to celebrate your uniqueness rather than trying to become like everybody else. Celebrate your uniqueness. Celebrate the uniqueness of the child. Help the child to celebrate his or her own uniqueness. Above all, help your child to become a unifier. Children from very early age have to be helped to become unifiers. You have to teach them how to become unifiers. Because if you don't, then these children do not develop the capacity to love in its fullest form. All right, now we come to the third power of human soul, and that is the power to will, to decide, power to decide, power of will. Now this is the most difficult area of training for most parents. Parents don't know how to raise their children to develop their capacity of will. Some people are ask for too much discipline. Other people ask for too little discipline. You see? So the issue of will, we talked yesterday about it quite a bit, and we talk about it again, is very fundamental, especially for children between ages 3 and 10. Because again, you want to teach children self-discipline before they arrive at the chaotic age of adolescence. Age of adolescence, because of changes that take place in body and the mind and emotions, is so chaotic, so difficult, that the children, before they enter that age, should have learned how to control their will and how to control their desires, how to develop your capacity for will. Okay? And of course, there are many ways that you do that. One is that you always, in order to be fair to the child, you have to set boundaries for the activities of child. In other words, you have to say to the child that there are certain things we do and certain things we do not do in life. For example, we do not jump from 7th-story building. We don't. We don't put our hands in a fire because we bear. We do not lie because it affects our soul and our relationships, and nobody trusts us. And our businesses wouldn't be good, our governments wouldn't be good, our society wouldn't be right. We don't do those things, you see? That we always create unity, because disunity destroys. Okay? These are the things that in life, these are the boundaries of life. Okay? There are other boundaries that you do here. For example, the issue of justice. You see, when human will grows in a healthy way, what you develop is the capacity for justice on a social basis, and a capacity for service on an individual basis. In other words, you have to help your children to use their will to serve other people. And when they are in the service of society, then use their collective will to establish justice. That's why in the Baha'i institutions, in the Baha'i Faith, the individuals focus on service, the institutions focus on justice. Okay? But that's a different story, okay? But here we are talking about raising children. So you have to give boundaries, moral, ethical boundaries, spiritual laws for children to follow. Those spiritual laws are laws of truthfulness and trustworthiness, the law of unity, the law unity in diversity, the law of service, and there is another law, and it is related to this. We put here justice in terms of interpersonal relationships. These are the laws that you have. These are moral, ethical capacities and qualities that children should develop. In other words, from the very early days of life, you have to help the children to learn how to serve other people. From the early years of life, you have to help the children how to become unifiers, how to be truthful, how to be trustworthy, how to be fair. You have to teach that. When you do that, then what happens is that within that, then you give freedom to the child to move. You establish the boundaries, and within those boundaries, you give the children enormous freedom to do what they do. So, in education of children, the most important things that they should learn is to develop their capacities of knowledge, love, and will during the first 10 years of life in such a way that at the end, when they are 10, they are truthful, trustworthy, unifiers, serving other people, fair and just. Okay, I stop here and let's have discussions and questions and answers. Yes?
There is a practical example that happened 2 days ago. I think it's a combination of the three powers. We have a child that wanted to find something to eat.
Yes.
Was in the dining room, and one said to the child, "Okay, stand up, go, look for it, and try to find it." And the other one said, "No, I come with you, and I will show you."
You mean the one parent
One
and another parent?
Say, "You will work yourself to find what you want." The other one say, "I will help you to find it."
Yeah.
And it was a total disagreement about that.
Yes. And you both were wrong.
Yeah, now we have to complete the picture.
Yeah.
We are in a new place, and
Yeah.
I felt that it was important to follow the child
Yeah.
in the beginning because this is a new place.
Okay. Now this is a good example. Let's discuss this example a little bit. Here a husband and wife have come to a new place. They have children, one child, how old?
9.
9. One child, 9-year-old, comes and says, "I want some food." One parent says, "You go to the restaurant and find it." The other one says, "You don't know how to get around. Let me come and help you to find it." Okay? Now, obviously, if the parent had said, "You go and find it," it's okay. Obviously, a parent said, "I come with you and find it," that's okay also. That's, neither of them is right or wrong. Because it doesn't matter. You know, the worst thing is that the child goes and doesn't find it and comes back and say, "I couldn't find it, help me." Or the child, you take the child and child says, "Thank you, mommy, that you did that, I love you." So you establish a closer relationship, and that's fine also. So neither of them. So this is not an issue. So obviously, when the parents disagree about something like, you're not disagreeing about whether this 9-year-old should go alone, not alone, to the restaurant to get something. There is something else going on. What else is going on, we don't know, but we know that is related to their will. In other words, their will clashes. Okay? How many wills do not clash? How many husbands and wives don't fight about stupid things in order to prove who is more powerful or who is right or who is wrong? How many people don't do that? Don't we do that all the time? You get suddenly say, why we are talking about this stupid thing now, okay? We are fighting with each other, arguing with each other, trying to, and then we say, you always have done that, and the other person you have done, and your parents also did that, and suddenly everything comes to the picture because what is happening is that when we were growing up, we weren't helped to develop our capacity of will in a healthy way. We haven't learned how to use our will in a healthy way. So our will becomes a tool to establish our identity and our authority. In other words, if I want to say who I am, I'm a great person, and if I have the power to show that I have the power and authority, then I would use my will and start arguing about little things that are unimportant in order to prove that I'm powerful. You see? So when that happens between couples, the essential thing is to immediately realize that the issue that you were arguing is not the issue, because both sides of it is there are good reasons to say it should be done. The important thing for you to sit back, you alone, and say, why did I do that? What was it saying about me? Not about raising this child. It wouldn't have made any difference whether the child had been left to go by himself or had been accompanied by someone. It wouldn't have made any difference. To the child, both of them would have been a learning experience. What is important, it says something about the parents. And therefore the parents then, they need to learn from that, to reflect on it and say, and not with each other, because they would again argue with each other. Okay? What they have to do is, anytime you want to learn something about yourself, you have to do it by yourself. Okay? If you want to learn and you cannot do it by yourself, you have to go to a third party and say, help me. I want to learn about myself. I notice that I get involved, argue about stupid little things, and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. What should I do? What does it mean? I don't know why I do it. You see? That's the way to go about it. It is so essential that we realize that most of the things that the parents disagree about children is nothing to do with the children. It's something to do with the adults, with the parents. Something to do about the dissatisfaction that they have with each other, the anger that they have toward each other, the resentments that they feel, the disappointments that they may have. And they express themselves in working with the children and dealing with the children. You see? Because this usually children become they're falling between the struggles of the parents, and the struggles usually related to their will. Who is winning and who is losing. And to love. Who is loved more and who is loved less. Okay? And to the knowledge. Who knows more and who knows less. You see, because a marriage is an interface of two souls. Two souls come together and two bodies. When the bodies come together, they either are very loving and nice to each other, or very harsh and unkind to each other, or very cold toward each other. Bodies can relate in many different ways. And the souls, then you see how the powers of knowledge and love will interact with each other. And they may interact with each other in a constructive way, or in a way that is constant war between them. But when that happens, you have to ask yourself a question. Say, how come? How come I do it? Not how come he does it or she does it. How come I do what I do? Okay? Because you have to learn about yourself first. Yes.
This power of will, you said may create some problem, but in the West we hear about assertiveness.
That's right.
That you have to assert yourself.
That's
and
right.
What is the relationship between these two, will and assertiveness?
Well, assertiveness means to use your will forcefully.
Forcefully.
Forcefully. That's what it means. You see, in the West right now, society is very preoccupied with will at the level of adolescence. Human societies use will now at two levels, primarily. One is in an authoritarian way, which one person says to the other person, I tell you what is right and you obey. Okay? Many men in the world do that. Many men in many established cultures usually are very authoritarian and say, this is it. This is the way we are going to do it and so forth. Women also, but men more so. Okay? So this is use of will as in an authoritarian way. Dictatorship. And you know there are many dictators around. Okay? All right. In every family usually. No, God forbid. Of course not. And not those who are going to listen to these tapes later. No. But there are nevertheless around. Okay? And then the other expression of will is the will. You see, authoritarian dictatorship is the characteristic of a childhood, in which childhood mentality, in which one person is more powerful and orders other people what to do. Okay? Authoritarian cultures, there are many authoritarian cultures around the world right now. Okay? And they function like that. Now, the world of humanity is moving from childhood to adolescence, actually has moved to a very large degree. And the world of humanity now is in the final stages of adolescence. So consequently, you see many societies also, especially in the West, in which they use will in an adolescent way. Meaning, you should be strong. You should stand up on your 2 feet. You should compete, and you should win. Okay? These are the values of the society. Competition, winning, assertiveness. These are the values of the society in its adolescent stage of development. Okay? What we are talking is to create a new society, a new civilization, a civilization of maturity, a civilization in which the human will is used to serve other people, and the institutions use the human will to create justice. That's the kind of society we try to create. We are trying to also create a society that puts emphasis on unity rather than on separateness, like the world is doing right now. Also, we are trying to establish a civilization that the world puts emphasis on truth rather than falsehood, like the world does now. Okay? These are the characteristics of the new civilization, be it at home, be it in the community, be it in the society, or be it at world level. That's what we are trying to do. And therefore our value system is changing. And therefore children, we have to give children new values. And we have to instill those values in them during the first 10 years or so of life. Yes. بفرمایید. پارچه یا بفرمایید.
این راستگویی رو
بله.
حالا اگر بخوایم بگیم که پدر مادر راست بگن، حالا نمیتونیم ادعا کنیم که هیچ وقت دروغ نگیم، ولی سعی میکنیم که به بچه لااقل همیشه راست بگیم. حتی وقتی که راست گفتن، شاید یه وقت آدم اضافه بشه وقتی راست گفتن دردناک میشه، ولی میشه اصلا راستش هم نگفت، دروغ هم نگفت، ولی آدم راستش رو باید بگه، یعنی تا این حد راست بگه ولی باز بچه دروغ میگه.
Got it. The question is how we can teach truthfulness to children. Because sometimes expression of truth is painful for the child. Not always parents tell the truth themselves. So we cannot say the example alone is sufficient, which is true. And even when there are not severe punishments, many times children go back to lying. Okay? You see, the problem I think that you're talking about, I assume that this was not true about your first 4 children, right? But in the adopted child is true, okay? You see, the reason is that in your own children that you grew, here to develop, that those children were, first of all, when they were infants, they developed their capacity of trust. You remember? So they had the capacity of faith. And secondly, you taught them moral standards from the very early time of their lives. So during the first 10 years of their lives, they learned about all of these moral things. Right?
This also 15 months. He had the time trust no.
No, but you see, the problem is that the adopted child for the first 15 months went to 10 different families. And therefore didn't develop the capacity of trust. Now the capacity of trust is a prerequisite for truthfulness. So if the capacity of not trust is not there, it is more difficult to become truthful. Even when you help them and try it and so forth, it becomes more difficult. And under those circumstances, the only thing that you can do, there are 2 things that you do. One is that you continue lovingly, kindly, and very sternly to help the child to realize that truthfulness is important. But the other thing is that you have to have patience, far more patience, because when the first 1.5 years or 1 year of life, the tree starts growing crooked, it's going to be extremely difficult to bring it, to be straight. And it takes much more time, much more energy. And even when the child wants not to lie, it still finds itself to lie because the emotional processes that are at work because of lack of trust are very, very considerable.
And will also.
And the will, yes. What happens with the will? What do you mean?
There is no will.
No will, yes.
No will when he wants something.
He wants something, he has to get it. Because that's related to the lack of trust. That's related to infancy. In infancy, when a child is deprived, which your adopted child was, when the child is deprived meaning not getting what you want, okay? So what happens is, every time you get something, there is something you wanted, and you go and get it. You may have eaten, but if there is more food, you go get it. You may have your money, but if there is money sitting around, you go and take it. Because you feel that you better take everything because you don't know when your mother is going to leave you again, or your father is going to leave you again, and you're going to be hungry again, and you're going to be without love again. So this becomes a symbolic, you see? So all of these capacities, knowledge, love, and will, suffers when the early times of life are so traumatic. That's the reason that the longer it goes, the more difficult it becomes. If the child has had a good infancy, the hopes are much better. If he has a good infancy and childhood, the processes are very good. And if we have good infancy and childhood and adolescence, the process is fantastic.
In this situation, to be very firm is not too much.
Very firm depends on what you mean. You have to be firm, And the child has to know that you are not changing your standards and so forth. But you can say to the child, I am very firm, this is unacceptable, but I know you have difficulty, and now I know the only one who can change it is you. So I'm willing to go along with you until you do it. As long as it doesn't go out of hands, as long as it doesn't become far too difficult. So the child should know that you haven't changed your standards, but you understand his special circumstances. And you even can start talking now that what is he experiencing now is related to what happened to him the first 15
But that
years.
becomes an excuse.
No, it doesn't.
Because I was this and I can
Yeah.
do now.
Yeah, you say, yeah, you tell him that because of that I'm more patient with you, but you could do it and you should do it and you have to try it. And so you have to constantly struggle with that. And then when he reaches a certain age, no longer you have a control over it. It is between him and himself and his God. And some people do it and some people don't do it. But you can't judge your parenting on that basis because the process has been different and difficult and so on. Yes.
This issue of trust, in theories of pediatric feeding practices in the early infancy,
That's right.
the first 6 months
That's right.
to a year, they change every 10, 20 years.
I know, yes.
And for a while they were saying, oh, you should feed on a schedule, every
Yes.
3 hours.
Yes.
Now they're going back to a theory that maybe it's better to feed on demand. Whenever the child cries, you feed the child. And how does this relate to the development of this trust?
Well, the essential thing about development of trust, especially during early stage of life and feeding and so forth, you're right. It has been totally misunderstood. For example, during the International Year of Child, which was in 1976, possibly, I don't know. There was a international conference organized by United Nations in Salzburg. And I was the representative of the Baha'i international community at that conference. And I've just published my book, The Violence-Free Society, A Gift for Our Children. So copies of that were given to everybody there. Dr. Spock was there, the one that had written the most influential book about raising children. And he was the keynote speaker. And he got up and he said, now we realize that we have made a mistake. That many of the things that we suggested is good for raising children wasn't good. Okay. That was very interesting. He said the only thing that I think has come out good out of the permissive approach that we suggested for raising children is that we have a lot of young people who are against war in the United States now because it was follow-up to Vietnam War. Okay? Now that was a very interesting statement. You are right. The specialists and psychologists and all of those people are changing their mind and their findings are different every time about what children need. But we know certain fundamental issues. Children should not be deprived of physical nourishment, or physical contact, of emotional nourishment, of spiritual nourishment, of intellectual stimulation. We know that. We know that these things should not be beyond the levels of moderation. We know that also. And we know also that naturally, under healthy conditions, if children are satisfied and not overstimulated or understimulated, they are calm. And they don't they are not very difficult then to handle, and they're happy. We can observe those things. We also know that every child has a different temperament. Some children are very irritable. They're very sensitive to touch and to something. And a noise, for example, startles one child and doesn't startle another child, which means that we have to deal with every child in a unique manner. The problem with this research is that they try to put aside the uniqueness dimension. They think that everybody is the same. So they try to find a medium level of dealing with children. In dealing with children, in raising our children, we have to remember that each of them is unique, both in biological, physical dimension and in their psychological, spiritual dimension. And therefore we have to be adaptable to needs of every child and different demands of every child, and not follow one or the other. For one child, maybe a certain routine is easier. For another child, another kind of a routine is required. So parents have to be totally flexible. They have to be totally open, because this child is a unique human being with his or her own temperament, with his or her own needs, with his or her own peculiarities. You cannot treat this child like the other child, you see. And this is one of the fundamental mistakes that are being made, you see. So those research are good as general guidelines. But when it comes to a specific, the parents have to determine for each child separately
That
what's needed.
requires that the parents have the maturity and ability to be able to
That's right.
handle children.
That requires that the parents have to be educated. Therefore, it's not surprising that Baha'u'llah says, and Abdul Baha said, if education is needed, the women and girls should be first educated. Okay? It's not surprising, therefore, that one of the first duties of local spiritual assembly is to organize classes for the education of the parents. Okay? And training of the parents. These are essential components of the community life. Yes, parents have to be educated. Parents have to know about these things. I think that in the future, a Baha'i community, as soon as it would have constantly classes for new parents, so that these parents come and learn before they have a child. They would have constantly classes for new marriages, for preparation for marriage, for parenting, for youth when they reach certain age. These are necessary. Parents have to know. You are right. We have to create. The Baha'i civilization is going to be an enlightened civilization, a civilization of knowledge, a civilization of based on truth, on science, on reality, not just wishy-washy the way that it is right now. You see. So we are talking about a very different approach to these issues. You are absolutely right. You know. Yes.
Just a little comment to that,
Yes.
because I've been, especially in the infancy age,
Yes.
because I've been working with great people.
That's right. You have.
a lot
Yes.
of these things.
Yeah.
And so I've met many mothers, and I feel that one knowledge is very important, but the word trust, you can use it another way. It's the parents who do not trust themselves.
You are absolutely right.
And that
Yes.
the biggest work I often had to do was in making the parents be confident in the fact that they actually know. They can see the unique side of that child, and they shouldn't look in all these books to try to find answers, because they won't find answers. They have to learn to trust that they know the answer.
Yeah. You can look at the books,
Yeah.
but ultimately you have to trust your own capacities as a parent, and use your judgment, and observe your child, and make sure. You see, you are the most intimate, especially mother, the most intimate with the child, and is much more knowledgeable about the child than anybody else knows, including the mother herself. So it's very important that mothers have self-respect and self-confidence. But when you give them more knowledge, they become even more self-confident. You see.
how do you retrain this will, and how do you help the children develop the will? I mean, I think the other two are
Yes, easier. I know. Will is the most difficult.
And how do you go back, first of all,
Yeah.
train your own will,
That's right.
and then also you're already a parent and you're trying to train the next
That's
will.
right. It's a question of retraining the will, which is a very important question. Retraining the will is like giving up a habit. Okay? It's like giving up a habit. For example, if you have a habit of smoking, you know how difficult it is to retrain that will not to smoke. Now, will means developing habits, okay? And therefore, it takes enormous degree of work to retrain, okay? It's not an easy process. We should realize that, because otherwise we would get disappointed in ourselves. So the most important thing is to establish a goal, realistic goal, and just slowly and step by step go towards it. You can't expect a sudden transformation flying from here to there. You see, you have to go step by step towards it. And you also, it's very important in this respect to ask other people's help. In other words, you say to a friend, you know, I'm trying to give up my smoking habit. Please do not offer me a cigarette. Or somebody may say, I'm trying to give up this habit of being critical. So please, if I'm critical, stop me and say, you're being critical again. And please do not be critical when you are with me, because that would immediately want me to be critical. Or let's say backbiting, or whatever it is. It is that process that you have to, actually you have to ask your spouse and your friends and others to help you. And say, you know, I'm trying to give up this one, help me. Because by doing that, by opening up that thing, you receive a lot of encouragement, a lot of courage. Then you have a lot of courage. You're not all alone. To give up a habit alone is very difficult. So it's somebody's helping. And of course, the one that can help you the most is God. And therefore, when you want to change a habit, prayer becomes absolutely essential. In other words, one of the first ways of doing it is to make sure that you say your prayers every day. Your obligatory prayers never missed. That you read from the writings in the morning and the evening. In other words, you put into action, into practice, all of those elements of for educating our will that God has given us. These prayers and fasting and not backbiting and not criticizing and all of those things that we read in the writings, they are all there for the training of our will. Okay? They are instruments for the training of will. And if we ignore those and try to change another habit, it's going to be very difficult. Okay?
Because I see this issue of will not only in marriages but also in Baha'i communities.
Everywhere. Everywhere.
And it's a struggle of many different wills. And if you have an issue somewhere, it shows itself up.
Absolutely, you're right.
Over and over.
The issue of will is so important that one of our master's degree program is a master's degree in conflict resolution. And that means that the students would learn we come here and study for a year or 2 years just to learn how to deal with the issue of conflict of wills. Because conflict comes as a result of wills coming against each other. So it's a very major issue, very major issue. Most of the wars are related to will, you see, and abuse of will and so forth. Richard.
Yeah, I have two practical questions. I have a baby girl 1 year old. Now, regarding like you say, like don't put finger into the electric.
That's right.
Okay. Now these are the things you cannot sew. If you sew it, it's too late. Now what we do is we just put some boxes.
Yes.
But the more you put, the more curious it is. You want to find out. As soon as you move, she will, try to be faster than you and try to put it down. Then another question is that there's an issue of how long you should breastfeed your baby, because
How long you what?
the mother should
Breastfeeding?
the baby.
Yes.
Because some say 2 years, some say 1 year, some say as long as you want.
Yeah.
So this
Well, she's an expert in breastfeeding. She has had 6 children. You breastfed all of them?
More and more.
More and more. As longer and longer for each time.
So I learned.
Yes. Breastfeeding, again, many children let you know when they don't want to be breastfed any longer. Okay? Many children give that. But also is very dependent on the mother also. If breastfeeding becomes a source of irritation for the mother, then the child, the milk becomes poisonous for the child in a way. So, because you cannot, say, oh, I hate doing this, and start breastfeeding the child. You can't. So I have many a times in my practice when I had parents who had this kind of a difficulty, mothers who had this difficulty, I said, okay, if that's going to be the case, don't breastfeed the child. Allow the child to be fed otherwise, because that backfires. So again, each case is on its own merit. You cannot generalize. But in general, about a year of breastfeeding is very important, in general.
The other question
Yes.
is about the electric.
Oh, about curiosity. Well, you see, when it all depends on the level of the age of the child. If the child is 1 year old and still you cannot reason them greatly and say this is not good for you and this and that, then of course you protect the child by putting something there so that the child cannot get into the electricity or whatever it is. Because you have to create an environment that is safe. But when the child gets older, gets 3 years old, then you deal with the same issue differently. Then you start dealing with the child according to the needs of the child at that time, you see. Yes. All right. Several people want to speak.
Is it possible to use reflex under condition, or conditional reflex for the child who insists to go and put his finger inside electric plug or something like that? Some parents, they say that it's hot, don't touch it. The child wants to go and touch the hot tea. It's okay, bring your finger. They took the finger and just touched to the tea, and the child, of course,
yeah.
Back. And whenever he goes near to the electricity, you see that one is G or boom or something like that. The child will know that this is the same condition that he won't like.
The essential issue in teaching children is that you're loving and you're kind and you're moderate and you're wise. Now, whether you do it by putting the finger there or not putting finger there, it depends on each family and each atmosphere and so forth. These are secondary. The primary issue is that these principles to be followed. Then the ways that you go about it is different for each family and each person. Yes.
I have 3 questions.
Yes.
So one, in Japan, some young couple, they like my brother, he got a marriage, and now he is staying with my parents, and now he got a baby, and for that babies, my brother and sister-in-law and my
parents
for the baby grandparents,
yes,
they have different
ideas. Yes.
Then it is difficult to.
Yes. Yes, I know. Yeah, this is very difficult. In many cultures, extended family are together, parents, grandparents, child. And there are two dangers under those circumstances, at least two. One is what you described, that the grandparents and parents don't agree how to raise the children, okay? Which is very bad, because when children are in a condition of conflict, then they feel nervous, they feel confused, they don't know what is right, what is wrong, and so forth. And the second thing is that children may be very indulged, very, what you call it, yeah, too much, spoiled, because everybody wants to give to the child. Both of them have negative consequences. This is a major dilemma in China right now, because they call the phenomena 4-to-1. One child, two parents, four grandparents. And these children grow up to be very, very indulged, very self-centered, very selfish. And that is very bad for them and for the society. So these are the kind of things that, these are cultural things that need to be changed. And the best thing, of course, is for your brother and his wife to live alone. But then they say, oh, we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough bigger house, or it's easier to have grandparents there, or there are all kind of reasons that people find. Because people, when they raise children, primarily think of themselves rather than the child. That's the problem. Everybody does things because the child gives them excitement, enjoyment, or purpose, or whatever it is. So I don't know what to say about that, except that there are difficulties with that. You said two more questions.
Another one is, so I'm a teacher, kindergarten teacher, so and I see mothers and fathers. Fathers, they are busy, they cannot take care of kids.
Yes.
Mothers, they are taking care of kids by themselves, because father goes to a company from the
That's right.
early morning, then come back maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So the mothers are so, what is it?
That's right. Overwhelmed, yes. Yeah, so much and alone and isolated, yes.
They are not satisfied.
No. Yes, when I was in Japan, I saw that. I have been in Japan a few times now, and I have observed how this situation is happening there more and more. I think that the Japanese society is going to change because the demands of work right now, the way that it is very inhuman. There's too much demand for people to work from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night, and then go out and drink with everybody, and then get home drunk at, or not get home and go to one of those little cubby holes in restaurant to sleep, and then the following morning, I know about that, okay? No society can continue like that for a long time, okay? So you as a teacher can serve the society a lot. For example, your school may decide once a month or once every 2 months to have an education afternoon or education evening session for the parents, mothers and fathers, and start talking about these things in general, about saying how important it is that we begin to change